Alright guys, we are back. I've had to have a little break because I've been moving house. At the moment, I'm still waiting for my internet to be fully set up. Apparently, it's going to be about 3 or 4 more days, which I'm pretty bummed about. I'm super excited to get back streaming. I'm literally recording this and I'm driving to a friend's house to upload it. The downtime has kind of been good because I've been able to work on some behind the scenes stuff. I've got some improvements for the stream happening. Alright guys, a little bit of housekeeping to go through first. If you like the channel, don't forget to subscribe. That helps the channel grow. I also stream on Twitch once my internet's back up, of course. I'm going to be streaming on Saturdays and Sundays. Also got Discord, guys. If you want to join, we have a small but kind of growing community, and I've even got a custom card contest going on in there, guys. So every week there's going to be 20 bucks. You can go check out the rules, but the winner's going to get 20 bucks for the best custom card. And guys, it's just starting, so there's not many people in there. So if you go in, you're one of the first people, or if you're the only person to submit. So it's going to be a bit of a different video for you guys. I wanted to talk about something, and I really want to talk about it because it's patch 1.6. So we're kind of entering a state of flux with the meta. Everything's going to be changing, and I want to talk to you guys about how to counter kind of any meta. So it's not just this meta specifically. We're going to talk about how we can counter any meta, anything that pops up, and we can craft a deck that's going to be able to beat it. So it's going to be for people who are into deck building, who like getting creative and trying to stay one step ahead of the popular decks. If you're the type of person that just really wants to you're not really concerned with deck building. You just want to play ladder and smash it out with some really strong decks. It's probably not for you. This is going to be for the people who want to get a bit more creative and try to build like a counter deck to the meta. When we talk about countering the meta, guys, the first thing you have to understand is that when it comes to deck building, people are lazy. Like most people, most of the player base is just really lazy. Most of them just net deck the tier 1 decks and maybe change a card or two, put whatever they feel like, their own little spin on it is. But most people just follow the trends, so don't underestimate how lazy people are when it comes to deck building. Most people are net decking, and we can actually use that to our advantage to climb the ladder. Like last season, I noticed that Deep was in a really good position when Ionia was kind of not in the meta. Ended up going from D4 to Masters with a 17 and 2 win loss. So I was really happy with it. And I want you guys to be able to do that yourselves and come up with your own decks like that. Now, guys, I put a little graphic up on screen. If you don't already know, this is generally how the matchups work in Legends of Runeterra. So aggro generally beats combo, combo generally beats control. I shouldn't say beats, I should say favored against. Control is generally favored against mid-range, and mid-range is generally favored against aggro. Now, in Runeterra, guys, there are actually a lot of exceptions to this, but this is kind of the simplest way I could find to break it down and just give you guys a bit of a framework so you can start thinking about how the matchups work and how they're skewed towards each other. So if we want to talk about this in Runeterra terms, we could say something like, well, Burn Aggro might beat your Karma Ezreal decks, and those Karma Ezreal decks will beat your Brahmanivias, which are going to beat your Damasias. Now, just remember, guys, it's not always true. This is just like a bit of a rule of thumb and to give you guys an idea of how the matchups are skewed. When we talk about carrying the meta, I'm not gonna just give you guys. I'm not just gonna say, play this deck, it counters this deck. This is more about giving you guys the tools and getting you guys in the mindset so you can go out and craft your own decks that match up well into the meta and the popular decks. Now, in Runeterra, the meta is going to move very fast. So part of the game is trying to stay, one step ahead and trying to be ahead of the trends. Right, so I'm going to break it down into. So guys, let's break it down into some really actionable steps you can go out and you can follow this and it will help you craft these decks. All right, step 1. Identify the metagame. Guys, this one's pretty straightforward. First, we just want to get an idea of what everyone's playing. So the obvious one, you can just go out, you can play the ladder, and you can notice if you're seeing a lot of a particular deck, but that's very slow. Another way you can do it is use data from sites such as Mobalytics. I will link that in the description below. And you can go on the Mobalytics site and look at the decks that are being played. Guys, what you want to pay attention to is not the win rate, although that will help you determine which decks are quite strong. but the volume of games played. You want to look at the matches column and see how many matches are being played. If one deck is crazy represented on the ladder, then you're going to run into a lot of that. Now, as a little bit of a caveat, Mobalytics data isn't perfect, but it gives us a pretty decent overview of the meta. Also, one of the absolute best resources you can use for this, guys, is the community created tier lists. These are what most people use to climb ladder with. So look on Mobalytics, look at the tier list, go on Swim's website. Everyone looks at Swim's website for ideas for decks and what's in tier 1. I'll link Swim's website below, and I will link Mobalytics below as well, so you can take a look at them. All right, so that's step 1. We just got to identify the metagame. Step 2, this one's a little bit trickier. We got to determine the strategies that work against the metagame, all right, or against the popular decks. So this part can seem really daunting because you go, okay, I know what everyone's playing, but how do I build something that's going to beat that? Like I don't know. Well, one thing I do recommend for you guys is to go out and, assume you have enough resources, enough cards, actually go out and just build the deck yourself and just play it. Play it with some friends, play it in normal games, play it on ladder if you want, and just find out where its weaknesses are, where it is, what matchups it feels really bad in, what matchups it feels good in. And you can actually learn a lot this way, and actually makes you more of a well-rounded player. So I would, if you're thinking of, if you really want to get good at the game, try and play a wide range of decks, guys, because it just makes you so much more well-rounded as a player. Now, obviously, this is going to be very time-consuming. You might not have time to smash out 20 games of this deck and learn, all the stuff about it. So the second thing we can do, guys, here is ask an expert. Ask someone who knows more about it than you. Ask a high-ranked player who's played a lot of games on the deck. And how can you do this? Well, you can jump into their streams, and all these high-ranked players, they're streaming, and they want to talk to you guys. Like when I'm streaming, I love when people come in and ask me stuff, especially matchups, how cards thing. Like that's all we're there for. So jump in. Go talk to some people and see how they feel about it, especially if they're known for playing a lot of that deck. Try and ask them about what its weaknesses are. The other thing you can do, guys, is jump into a Discord. There's heaps of Discords out there with really high ranking players, a lot of people that just want to help and they just want to chat about the game and have a discussion. So you can jump in, ask them about techs, what techs work really well into what matchup. And by techs, I mean like specific little cards you can throw in. Ask them, about the matchups, what does what well into what matchup, and think about the deck that you're targeting. Ask some questions about that. You can even ask people, oh, guys, what do you think of any sleeper OP decks? What do you think are things that are emerging or coming up and could be trending? So, and you could try and stay ahead of the game that way. So there's a lot of good resources out there, guys. I'm going to link a couple of Discords below. There's a lot of good ones out there. If you guys have any other good ones, please leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Then the third step to this, guys, is you go out. So once you've identified the meta, you have identified the strategies that are going to work against it, go out and build it. Go out and build your deck and, pick an archetype that you think will perform well in the current metagame and just go for it. If you want to play test with friends a couple of games, beforehand, or even in these Discords, guys, lots of people will scrim with you or do 1v1s. Play test a couple of games, play it in some normals or something. And just play it and see how it works for you. Now you always want to be revising it. So you might play a game, you might find you don't like this card, you don't like that, and you can slowly kind of revise your deck and turn it into what you want. So you might play a couple of games with it and find, oh, this card's not working, but that's part of the process, is going back, building and revising it constantly. Guys, don't be afraid to fail. If you want to get out there and build your own decks and, specifically counter decks for the meta, just go out there and just start doing it. Don't be afraid to fail. It might not work, but you're never going to know unless you try. So encourage you, if this is something that sounds like fun to you, absolutely go out there and do it. Now I know it might seem a little bit confusing, so I'm going to run you through the steps, and I'm going to use an example. I'm going to use this metagame at the moment we're in as an example, but this will pretty much work for any metagame. So step 1, identify the metagame. So it's going to be really tricky to do this the day after a patch, excuse me. But I'm gonna walk you through it. So basically we know that Ash Sejuani was looking like the strongest deck before the patch, and it was already kind of on top right before 1.6 dropped, and it was one of the only decks that really dodged all the nerfs. So we can have a pretty good idea that that's going to be the strongest deck. And then I'm looking at Mobalytics and I'm seeing a lot of mid-range decks on here. I'm seeing the Ash Sejuani, I'm seeing Scouts Bannerman, um, and I'm seeing a lot of board-centric kind of mid-rangey strategies. So, and I've also looked at Swim's tier list and I see there's a lot of mid-range on there, especially up in the higher tiers. So we can pretty safely say that we're probably going to go up against these mid-rangey board-centric strategies. Okay, so now we're on to step 2. Let's work out what strategies are going to be really good against them. Well, if I want to find out what works well against a mid-range deck, and specifically the mid-range decks in this meta, and I don't have the time or the resources to go out and craft it and test it myself and work out what's good and what's not, you can just jump into one of these Discords, guys, and spend 5 minutes having a chat with some high-level players. They're on there. They'll be happy to help, and you can just ask them, what beats this? What beats mid-range? And most people come back and say, okay, you got a couple of ways to beat mid-range. You can either go under them, meaning you play super hard aggro and you kill them before they can get a hold of the game, or we can go over them, meaning we play slow, try to stall out the game, and then we try to clear off their board until we can activate our own win condition. And you might even learn something like, okay, Ruination is an excellent card into mid-range decks. Shadow Isles could be a good place to start. Guys, while it's important to note that yes, Ruination can be really good in a mid-range meta, as you get up to the higher ranks, you'll notice that players become a little bit better at not overextending into it. And it's going to have diminishing returns the higher up rank you go. But for the most part, it still will perform decently well for you. Now, guys, if you want a little overview of overextending, and one of those mistakes people make, I do actually have another video. I will link it, and it goes over 7 mistakes that new players make, and one of them is overextending. So if you want to look at that and learn a little about how you cannot overextend, I encourage you to click on the link. I'll pop it up there somewhere right now. So guys, step 1, we identified that the meta was going to be really mid-rangey. Step 2, we determined, we could either play aggro or we could play some form of really controlly slow deck, probably with a lot of board clear. Something like Ruination would be really good. And then the third step, we're going to build and revise. So we're going to go in and start building the deck. We're thinking, okay, I'm going to build Shadow Isles, going to chuck Ruination in there, and I'm going to get this thing going. And that's going to give you a kind of an idea of where to start. And guys, once you build your deck, you can even share it with some high level players on Discord. You can talk to them and say, oh, do you think it's good? What weaknesses do you think it has? Do you think it will perform in the current metagame? And just go out there and share it. And you might get some feedback back to something that you weren't thinking of yourself. Maybe a card you weren't thinking of, maybe a direction you could take the deck that you didn't think of. So I really encourage you guys to jump in these Discords. It's super fun talking to everyone about this stuff, and it'll help you get more creative with the deck building. So guys, I hope that helped you and kind of gave you the tools to go out and start crafting some of your own decks. And I just wanted to break it down to some little steps that you could, actually follow through with. Don't be afraid to experiment. Get out there, be creative. And guys, good luck and have fun on the ladder. I will be hooked up to the internet hopefully soon, in like 3 or 4 days, and we'll be back streaming. If you guys want to jump in the stream, ask me any questions at all. I would be happy to answer them. I got a cool new idea for how to tweak my deep deck for this patch as well, which would be super fun. And yeah, the Discord guys, if you want to jump in, I'd really love to have you in there. I'm trying to grow it up, and I just want to make it a place where everyone can come and talk about Legends of Runeterra and just have a fun time. These contests too, I'm super pumped for. I love custom cards, so I'm super psyched to see what you guys can come up with. So, till then guys, I hope you have a good one, and I'll see you later.